Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us for today's webinar, How to Get 80% Greater Social Media Reach for No Cost with Digital Credentials. My name is Cody, I'm from Accredible, and I'll be your host for today. If you're not familiar with Accredible, we are the world's leading digital certificate and digital badging software. Over 1,500 leading organizations like Google, Slack, Sage, S&P Global, Skillsoft, and more trust us to issue their digital badges and certificate, and we issue millions of these credentials each month. If you have questions for us, please post them in the Q&A window that's accessible in the panel on the side or bottom of your screen. I will be monitoring those questions as we go, and if I don't get to one of your questions right away, please don't worry. I'll take some time near the end of this webinar to answer as many of your questions as possible. Please note, we are recording this webinar and will send out the recording to you after the webinar is over. So let's get started. The return on paid social ads is falling, in part due to the ongoing pandemic, but the greatest impact comes from a change in attitude towards once market-leading social platforms like Facebook and increased transparency around user data tracking. Facebook is continually facing turbulence, including company boycotts and hours-long outages. And as a result, organizations are trying to further diversify their ad spend. So they're turning to alternative platforms like TV advertising and audio channels. For organizations for credentials, there's another channel they can harness without increasing marketing spend. They're recipients. This webinar is intended to help you understand the value that digital credentials bring to your marketing efforts. We'll explore the challenges of paid social media ads and how strategies need to change to see returns, and how digital credentials can reduce or replace the spend on social ads. And finally, how you can encourage engagement and shares to promote referrals and really make digital credentials go the distance. So let's jump in. We will begin by taking a look at the current landscape of paid social media advertising. Statistics show that the CPM, or cost per thousand impressions, is steadily increasing. So since 2019, CPM roughly across social media advertising has risen by about 12% from 571 to 673 as of the second quarter of 2021. So it's now costing organizations more to get the same ads seen by prospective customers. At the same time, the click-through rate is steadily decreasing. So between 2019 to 2021, the click-through rate of social media ads dropped from roughly 1.41 to 1.11%. The way audiences respond to social media advertising is changing. Organizations are not seeing the same return on paid social media advertising as they did just a few years ago, and that downward trend is set to continue. So why then are we seeing less return for social media investment, and what does that mean for marketing efforts? Well, we know that social media platforms are still popular. They're generally growing. What's influencing that downward trend? The answer is that it's an impact from changing rules and greater transparency around user level data tracking. Where apps could previously use techniques like IDFA, ID for advisors, to track a user's activity across multiple apps for data collection and ad targeting purposes, those policies are changing. The greatest change came from Apple's rollout of iOS 14.5 in April 2021. So they began enforcing a policy called App Tracking Transparency, or ATT for short. So apps across iPhone, iPad, and Apple TV now have to request user permission for tracking user activity, and millions of users are choosing to opt out. And in fact, Verizon owned Flurry Analytics, which claims to be used in more than 1 million mobile apps, reported that only 4% of US users opted into user activity tracking. And for global audiences, only 12% opted in. Apple isn't the only one making moves to increase data privacy either. So Google announced in early 2020 that they would be deprecating third-party cookies in response to users demanding greater privacy. And that includes transparency, choice, and control over how their data gets used. So the change is not only then going to affect first-party cookies that are set by the host domain, but will be further impacting cross-site tracking, retargeting, and ad serving, data that platforms like Facebook rely on. So a recent survey by the leaders really in research and analysis, Statista, revealed that only 32% of US web users choose to accept cookie tracking. So the true extent of this impact is still under consideration. But what does that mean exactly for your paid social media advertising? The more users that opt out of user activity tracking, the harder it becomes to effectively target those audiences through social media. Facebook once had the highest level of audience targeting in their advertising tools. Now they're constantly having to remove targeting options. In November of 2021, Facebook actually announced that they would be eliminating even more audience targeting options from their advertising tools starting in January 2020. January 2022. So not only is it getting harder to target audiences, but the data reported by Facebook's Pixel, the code placed on your website that lets you measure, optimize, and build audiences for your advertising campaigns, is not matching up with the results seen by users. And this has only heightened the distrust in Facebook's paid advertising tools. In September 2021, Graham, the vice president of product marketing at Facebook, actually admitted the impact on your advertising investment has been greater than you expected. The cost of achieving your business outcome may have increased, and it's also gotten harder to measure your campaigns on our platform. So for your marketing teams, this means that they need to spend more time and effort making sure that your paid social media advertising is getting in front of the right audiences and generating a return on your investment. But some of that extra effort is already lost the moment your ad live due to increasing ad fraud. So ad fraud comes from clickbots that generate impressions or clicks on your paid ads, wasting your budget and throwing off your metrics. Let's focus on Facebook for this. Out of more than 2 million Facebook users, an estimated 270 million are fake or duplicated user accounts. And fraudsters use these fake accounts to click ads, eating up your ad spend and costing you lost revenue potential. Data gathered again by Statista reported 35 billion was lost to digital ad fraud in 2018. They then estimated that the costs related to digital advertising fraud worldwide would grow exponentially, eventually reaching $100 billion in 2023. It's almost impossible to protect against ad fraud without having to spend more on clickbot protection. And Facebook isn't interested in refunding you for suspected clickbot activity. They claim that the majority of impressions and clicks come from real accounts. But investigations reveal that these so-called real accounts have often been set up by spammers and third-party companies that are selling impressions and clicks. They instruct the accounts to interact with a random set of ads to hide their true intentions, and it only becomes noticeable when the clicks don't generate the engagement that would be expected from a true prospective customer. So now your marketing teams are having to spend more time optimizing your paid social media ads to get them in front of the right audiences. And some of that effort is already lost due to ad fraud before ads even go live. It costs more money to try and combat it. As your marketers spend more time on optimizing paid social media advertising, they are losing time that could be spent on other high-value campaigns or high-value tasks. So what can you do? You could expand your marketing team and add more people, but this is also going to cost the business more. And you may still be recovering financially from the impact of COVID or in the throes of it. Well, what about keeping the same staff? Well, staff are generally widespread level feeling burnt out. And the last thing you need is for your potentially overworked team to become another statistic in the Great Resignation. Neither is a great option. So then what can you do to reclaim some of your lost social media advertising while also lightening the load for your overburdened marketing teams? The solution is pretty simple in our eyes: to utilize no-cost targeted marketing benefits of digital credentials. Digital credentials are literally made for this. They're built to share. Once your recipients have met the target criteria, they receive a digital credential instantly in their email inbox. And just like a real life achievement, they are motivated to share, to celebrate in that moment with their friends, family, and peers. So in just one click, they then share a digital credential to a news feed for their followers to view, engage with, and celebrate alongside them. They instantly have access to those people. The audience targeting benefit from digital credentials comes from the portion of your recipients' followers that fall within your target audience. Social media has become a key part of our lives. Our followers and friends include the people that we attended school and college with, colleagues we've worked with in past and present roles, and connections we've made through industry networking events. This is especially the case on LinkedIn, right? As it focuses on B2B connections and is frequently being used as a recruiting tool by hiring managers. So when your recipients share their credentials to platforms like Facebook or LinkedIn, they create authentic social proof that showcases the value of your programs, especially when these recipients go on to receive promotions or job offers that they in turn announce and celebrate on social media platforms. They're benefiting you and your credentials. One of our customers and a leading provider of modern business education, Brunchwork, shared that the switch to credentials drove home the value that credentials provide Brunchwork users, and it actually led to a number of shared recipient success stories. Paraphrasing Paulina, 2 women, both at a big tech company in Silicon Valley, went through the program. They finished the course. Within 2 weeks, they then had both secured promotions, and they attributed their promotions to what they had learned in the intensive course and how the certificate supported the skills they gained during this time, like communication, business frameworks, and strategy. All of that story, that success, lived on those social media platforms in plain view and accessible to the networks of those recipients. So the success that your recipients receive from earning digital credentials is seen by their followers, who often work in similar industries or roles, and they want to achieve this success for themselves. As a result, the authentic social proof generates both brand awareness and demand for your credentials without requiring additional spend. In another case, from the Grad Management Admission Council, aka GMAX, they achieved an 82% share rate of their credentials with Credible, which was an increase of 64% from the previous year. GMAX stated that the increased visibility of their credentials and shares served to motivate candidates who didn't meet the criteria for the final assessment the first try around to return and fulfill the requirements to be eligible to try for a digital badge. So it actually brought people back who had failed to complete a program the first time and get and complete that program, to take that course out. So digital credentials can lead to increased demand and reduce social media advertising spend by replacing that with organic shares. But what can organizations do to boost recipient motivation to share and eventually replace social media advertising spend? The easy answer is to become a cheerleader for your recipients, right? When your recipients share their digital credentials to social media platforms, a simple congratulations on their post goes a very long way. It helps to promote trust with potential customers or candidates that engage on that post, and it reinforces to all of your future learners that they should share. You can also encourage engagement by using targeted things, action words inside credential email call to actions. So rather than rely on a view credential button and trust that recipients are going to take the next step of sharing, you could include an extra or focused button or CTA call to action that motivates that specific action, like share credential to LinkedIn, add credential to LinkedIn profile, or celebrate your achievement on LinkedIn. Those action words make it clear what clicking on the button will do, and it motivates readers to take that action and reduce the number of steps in sharing their credential. You also want to provide clear guidance on how recipients can use their digital credential, including a text link leading to a how to use your digital credential style page within the credential delivery email. That's going to ensure that recipients aren't left guessing what the next step is they should take. Guidance that you give to your recipients can take the form of a short video that shows the steps of sharing, maybe written step-by-step instructions that show how to share a credential featured alongside screenshots of the engagement previously shared credentials have received, and an FAQ for where digital credentials can be shared and the value in sharing, such as improve visibility to managers and recruiters. So to summarize, digital credentials lead to authentic social proof of the success achievable through your program. Guidance and encouraging action motivates more shares, and credential shares create demand, which translates into referral clicks from prospective candidates. As brand awareness increases through credential shares, your program grows. And eventually, this can completely replace the previous spend on social media advertising while still ensuring you benefit from the popularity and reach of social media platforms. All right, now I'll open things up to all of the questions that we've started to receive here. If you have a question that you have not asked, please post it in the Q&A window. I'll try to get to as many of your questions as possible, and I apologize in advance for paraphrasing any of your questions. So Jennifer asks, can credentials be on a blockchain? The answer to that is yes. So by default, a credible has what we call bank level security. And I'll go through a little security spiel, so please stay with me. Bank level security means that it's as hard to hack or falsify an credible credential as it would be to hack a national level bank. And that's just the default safety setting. That's compared to, let's say, something like a PDF that somebody might be using outside of the digital credential platform, where the barrier to making a fraudulent PDF is knowing Photoshop. I can name 4 12-year-olds that could do it. So by default, a credible has bank level security, going above and beyond what normally would be offered. You also have the option with a credible to use blockchain security. So a credible will record credentials for you to the Bitcoin blockchain. And what that does is it creates an immutable record that credential belongs to a specific individual, and the credential itself cannot be falsified. When something's on the blockchain, then when it's recording to the blockchain, it is effectively impossible to hack or to falsify, because it would require somebody to hack 51% of the distributed instances of the blockchain in the world, which is thousands upon thousands of computers and records. Okay, I have another question here from an anonymous attendee. So I teach people how to resolve pain, restore health. How would something like this work as a digital credential? I have a membership website where they access education and training. I also have other programs and options for those. So for this anonymous attendee, the use case that you have is actually twofold. So there is one, a set of education materials on the site, and there's two, membership. So when we think of use cases for Credible, associations or membership can be its own entity inside of the way that you are rewarding or recognizing individuals. So the International Association of Privacy Professionals is a customer, and they could give out certificates that just say you are a member of that organization. And that certificate can, let's say, get you into an industry conference, or it could be something that you show to someone else as you're passing off credentials while going on site to do consulting. So the first thing that you could do is have digital credentials to showcase membership. So each of your members could get digital credentials. And that could be in the form of certificate, badge, or both. And the second piece, the website where they're accessing education and training. If you have any current flow where somebody is, let's say, taking a course and graduating, or earning some sort of PDF or award, that can be integrated with a Credible, right? You can set that up so that when somebody takes those qualifying actions, instead of getting what they normally would today, they instantly receive a digital credential that they can then share to their social profiles. So in both of those cases, for the members that you want to recognize and for the education that you want to reward somebody for taking, you have the ability to do that through digital credentials. Okay, hopefully that answers the question. If you want any more specifics, we might have to take it into an offline discussion. So please feel free to message me directly, and include, of course, a little bit of contact information, and I will try and set up a conversation for you. Okay, I have another question. Our students are children. We have seen no traction since parents are not sharing and children are not on these platforms. What can we do? This is a really great question because it's an interesting use case. And it honestly depends on the type of credential or award that's being given out. So I'll use the idea of something like educate. So let's say students are going through an AP style course that's going to prepare them for college or make them more apt to be a good worker or be better for certain institutions. The shares that you are getting from students on these platforms sort of requires its own necessity or need for the students to actually have those social profiles. So one of the things that we find important in these cases is not only providing the awards, the recognition for achievement, but encouraging and educating parents on creating those social profiles on those certain platforms. Is okay for a student who may be a child who's still growing and has a couple of years until they make it into the adult workforce, to have something like a LinkedIn profile, to have something like a social profile that shows their achievements that they can use as a record of their accomplishments and use to present themselves to prospective partners, investors, employers for whatever they want to work on, right? If you have somebody who is a student or a child student that is working on a nonprofit, they need to go talk to partners, investors for that nonprofit. They should have a way to show off who they are, even if they are not yet at the normal age that somebody might have one of those profiles. All right. Thank you for that question. Very interesting one. Fred says, okay. Fred unfortunately has to go. Fred says, thank you. Fred, thank you for joining us. Another question here. How do I know if my users are sharing their credentials? Great. So we have an analytics tool inside of Credible that lets you do that. I won't go into too much more information here. I'll follow up with you in an email, Ben. And if anybody else also wants more information on Credible's analytics, please let me know. I'll have somebody reach out to you about that. Okay. The next one here, I'm going to heavily paraphrase. I apologize for this in advance, but how do we know the percent that we've saved in Facebook spend? So Lindsay, that's a great question. It all depends on how much you spend today and how many referrals that we expect you'll be able to get through digital credential sharing. I'd love to put you in touch again with a member of our team to have a deeper discussion around that if you're interested. So they would be able to go into much more detail than I. They are experts. I'm just an educator here. So I would love to start that conversation for you. Yeah, absolutely, Lindsay. I'll put you in touch after this webinar is over. If anybody else wants to sort of have a similar conversation, please post that in the Q&A or the chat and send that directly to me, and I will make sure that you get in touch with our team. All right. Okay, I have another question, I guess, from Tom, and this one is again paraphrasing. I still don't understand how a credential share is better than a paid ad, and that's okay. It can be a little bit difficult to wrap your head around it at first. So think of it this way: you're paying for a number of impressions or clicks and targeting a specific audience every time you run an ad. When someone shares a credential to Facebook or LinkedIn or another platform, they're giving you those same impressions or clicks for free. And the pool of people that are going to see that post are part of your target audience. So the sharing of the credential and the reach that it gets is impacting the same pools of people. And you are getting into your target audience. So it gives you that same reach, that same visibility for no cost. And one of the other things that's important to note here is the idea of authenticity. So when somebody sees an ad on Facebook or an ad on LinkedIn, they know it's an ad and they trust it less. When they see one of their connections sharing an award or an achievement that they had, that is organic. It is part of their network. They are trusting of that. So they're going to be more apt to visit your site through one of their social media connections sharing something than they would be to just having one of your ads come up on their profile or on their feed. Okay, we are getting close to the half-hour mark here, and some questions are still here, but they are outside of the scope of the webinar. So if you have a question I didn't get to, someone on our team will reach out to you after this webinar is over. Thank you all for joining us. If you'd like to learn more about the benefits of digital credentials, join us in our future webinars or head to our website, accredible.com, and download some of our existing resources. Remember, you can get in touch with our experts at any time from our website, or you can sign up for a trial account of our software. And that trial gives you everything you need to test out Accredible. We've helped hundreds of organizations, including the Googles and Slacks and Sailor Academies, leverage their recipients' networks through digital credentials. So I'm confident we can help you. Thank you again, everyone, and have a great day.